is your girl, Christina De Leon, Chicago Boricua, and you're listening to Harv Roman. Doing big things on the Harv Roman Show.
The heart is stronger than you think, like it could go through anything. Even when you think you can't, it finds a way to still push on. No, sometimes you wanna run away, ain't got the patience for the pain. And if you don't believe it, look into your heart, the beat goes on. I'm telling you, things get better through whatever. If you fall, dust it off, don't let up. Don't you know you can go be your own miracle? You need to know if the mind keeps thinking you've had enough, but the heart keeps telling you don't give up. Who are we to be questioning, wondering what is what? Don't give up. Through it all, just stand up. It's like we all had better days. Problems getting all up in your face. Just because you go through it, don't mean you gotta take control. No, you ain't gotta find no hiding place, because the heart can beat the hate. Don't wanna let the mind get playing you, saying you can't go on. I'm telling you, things get better through whatever. If you fall, dust it off, don't let up. Don't you know you can go be your own miracle? You need to know that keeps thinking I've had enough, but the heart keeps telling you don't give up. Don't you give up. Who are we to be questioning, wondering what is what? Don't give up. Don't give up. Just stand up. Just stand up. Just stand up.
AM 1590 is WCGO Radio in Chicago, where Chicago goes for celebrity hotline conversations early on a Saturday morning. That is so many artists who are devoted to the cause, stand up to cancer, that I'm not going to be able to list them all. But I will tell you that March is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. And it's been all over my Facebook, all over a lot of people's Facebooks. Kind of primarily in our case because, I work at a school now, and at least 2 of our school family members are afflicted with the disease, and they've been doing fairly well considering how things could be going for Betsy Fonseca and her daughter Jasmine. And we work with the both of them. Betsy used to be a club kid, which is kind of cool, and now we're co-workers. And her daughter is also afflicted, and she's a family member over at the school that we work at now. So we do want to pay tribute to them and show respect to them for everything that they are going through, and they continue to soldier on. And then they've got support with one of our listeners and friends, Gina Rivera también. So it is very, very cool. And there's only so much that I can do as a friend or as a radio jock. But at minimum, if I can help spread the word in terms of awareness and education, I will. And then as a friend, of course, I have to do some support. My name is Harv Roman. This is another exciting edition of Celebrity Conversations early on a Saturday morning. 1590 AM is WCGO. Chicago goes to us when it comes down to wanting to listen to Celebrity Conversations. And our Celebrity Conversation this Saturday morning, a fierce Latina, a fierce Chicago Latina from Humboldt Park to Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, words and music for Christina De Leon.
Wow, this is so cool to talk to you because it's been a while since it's kind of interesting because we've been buddies on social media for I don't know how many years now, and we've kind of tap danced around doing an interview, and with your schedule, which is busy, which is a good thing, because when you're an actress, you need to be busy. We haven't been able to get it done, and now on a Saturday morning, we are getting it done, so I do appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us for a little while.
Thank you. I appreciate you having the interest to interview me.
Well, why not? You are one of those fierce Chicago Latinas that are starting to take over the world. When you start looking around at the kids that came out of the Humboldt Parks and the Logan Squares and the little villages of Chicago that are having their impact in New York and LA and in Florida, it is a pretty good time to be somebody from Chicago. Are they hunting you guys down now because you're Chicago and because of people like you and Gina, or is it just a coincidence?
I think it's just a coincidence. I think that the temperature and the climate of the country everybody's looking for more diversity, and who better than to make things diverse than Puerto Rican women?
Well, I agree, but once upon a time, my background with, radio and the Boys and Girls Clubs and whatnot, I had always gravitated towards interviewing, Latinos from Chicago and beyond, and in particular, a lot of the comics that have come through town and are from town. And, Hollywood is one of those strange things that it used to be, and hopefully it's not anymore. Like, if they've got one George Lopez show, they figure, well, we already have a Latino comedy show, so we don't need another one. And then they'll adopt somebody else for a little while, so they go from Freddie Prinze to George Lopez, and then they don't discover very many other people. It seems like Latinos had been discovered only one at a time until recently.
Right. And even now, some people feel that it's still a hurdle to overcome. I see a lot of diversity, like in Jennifer Lopez's new series, Shades of Blue. She has a white person, a black person, Latinos, Asian. There's a little bit of everybody in there, and I think it's important to show diversity in shows. I'm currently I executive produce a web series called Mom's, a brand new series, and we're trying to make it into a television series. And one of the things for us is that we feel that it's important to show women of color in the same light as everybody else. It doesn't always have to be like the Cha-Cha girl who plays the Puerto Rican, or a maid, or, those kind of roles, or an African-American playing a slave, or a ghetto person, or, it's just that we're so much more than that, and it's just in Hollywood, I think, a little bit to catch up, but I think they're there now.
It's funny, because a lot of the words that you're saying, if you went back to my 1992 interviews with people like George Lopez and John Leguizamo, those were the things they were saying they wanted to defeat back then. The stereotypical roles. I don't want to be a terrorist. I don't want to be a waiter. I don't want to be the guy that takes the car around in front for somebody else to get into. And through the hard work of people like you and people like them, now it's to the point where, and I used to tell my son, I said, Latinos are the new cool thing now. You got to have a Latino, where once upon a time there were other ethnicities and other stereotypes that they would work into shows, but then they would give them like such a stereotype that it really wasn't representing us well.
Right. I caught those flags for Chicago Boricua within the community. I remember when Chicago Boricua came out, not everybody embraced it in the same way. I had a different perspective. I grew up in Humboldt Park, the daughter of two police officers. So I kind of had the best of both worlds. I went to private school, but I was raised in the hood, and I went to the field house, and I went to gymnastics at the field house, and by the time I was 15, I was really interacting a lot with a lot of the local neighborhood, some of the people that weren't on the same track as I had originally been on. So I kind of see both sides of things. I had a lot of friends that are in prison for life and that are no longer with us. And unfortunately, that's the reality of our community.
Let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
People that graduate and go to college and go on to have better lives, but those are further and fewer in between, and there are a lot of, I have people that I grew up with in church who are police officers now, or lawyers, or business people, and so it's just that because of the way the community was and is, and the way the temperature of the world is, you have to sometimes tell the hard story that nobody wants to hear. Yeah, nobody might want to see a movie about a white girl pretending to be Puerto Rican who wants to be the queen of the Puerto Rican parade and who's going through an identity crisis, or nobody wants to see Amy Garcia smoking pot with, the local drug dealer, and, just the different ways that it shed light on the community. But in reality, those are real issues there, and there actually are harder issues for the community that nobody wants.
It's interesting that you say all that, and I didn't know we'd go into that, but when I watched the movie for the first time years ago, I couldn't wait to get a copy of it, and what I was seeing the flags, I was seeing the Puerto Rican house, I was seeing Division Street, I was seeing people that looked like us, and I says, this is great. Yeah, there was the stereotypical storylines, but it wasn't really stereotypical if you're from Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Cicero.
That's right.
It's not stereotypical, and I looked at it like a showcase. I really never looked at it as, wow, they're making us look pretty bad, because to me, Chicago Boricua was one of those movies, and it's you and Amy Garcia and Ramses Jimenez who broke out of there. And a movie like that, I thought, was doing really positive things for the culture. Storylines were the storylines, but then again, there were the grandpas playing dominoes, and nobody's complaining about that.
Right, and you know what? There was, there were a certain amount of people who really were inspired by this film. To this day, I have young girls reaching out to me on Instagram or Twitter and saying, you really were an inspiration to me. I've seen you and I've watched you throughout your career and the different moves that you make, and I just want to tell you that you've made an impression on my life. And when I hear things like that, to me, it's worth it. I don't really care about negativity or negative things that people say. I grew up with that. Like I said, I'm from Humboldt Park.
well, people who are not from here may not completely understand how important the pageant is in our community. And there's two pageants, it's the girls, it's the little girls, it's the teenage girls, it's the older girls, and in the last few years, they've had a transgender pageant that is just as huge. Chicago, I think, has always done a really good job of exposing, the Latinos y Latinas here, with the 26th Street and Cicero and Division Street, and maybe those on the outside just don't see it that way, or they look at us as, well, we're segregating everybody.
Well, I think that it's in human nature. If you look at just the way that things are in the world, it's, east side, west side, hub, stop. It's never people trying to find unity. Unfortunately, people always try to find a reason to be separate, and whether it's, unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorant people in the world who base it off the melanin levels in your skin, or, whether or not you're rich or poor. So,
well, I think too, people need to realize that the movies, what is it? It's got to be almost 15 years old now.
Yeah, almost.
And it was a movie that needed to be made, and probably amongst the reasons that it was made is that no one else would have made it. It's a Chicago film. It's Chicago Latinos. It's people who knew each other and decided we're going to jump into this together, whether we're getting.
That's an interesting story. It wasn't like that.
Oh no.
Actually, no. It was actually directed and produced by some professors at Columbia College. Marisol Torres.
Right, Chicago.
In Chicago. And the executive producer of Chicago Boricua was Richard Schwerin, who was the co-executive producer of Law and Order.
That I did not know.
Yes. So Marisol Torres, I believe, is Jewish Puerto Rican. And, they decided, she wrote the film, and it was her take on the community. And I remember hearing about the auditions, and at first I hadn't been invited to the auditions, but I had heard about them. A lot of my girlfriends had been auditioning, and it's funny, sometimes actresses, they don't want to tell the other actresses where the auditions are, because they're afraid if you find out, you might get the role and they might not. So at first I was hearing about the auditions, and I had been involved in a play at the Ballywick on Belmont called Latino Log. And I think at the time it was being produced by Elena Sotomayor, and they wanted her to audition for the movie, but she was busy. She travels the world with her husband, and they do a lot of good work in Santo Domingo. And I don't know what she was doing at the time, but for some reason she called me up, and she was like, "Hey, Christina, did you hear about the Chicago Boricua audition?" She's like, "Well, I just wanted to let you know, some of the producers are going to come and watch the show, so, just a heads up." Well, after the show, they gave her a call, and they wanted me to come in and audition for Chicago Boricua. Now, this is after they auditioned hundreds of girls in Chicago, all girls at Columbia College, and all my friends I told you had auditioned for it, but nobody was really saying where the auditions were. And I went in the very last week that they were holding auditions, and I read for both roles, my role, Tata, and Amy Garcia's role. And I really felt closer and connected to the role of Tata because my own story was one that I grew up in a private school. And even though I grew up right across the street from Humboldt Park, there was a disconnection. And when I tried to integrate into the neighborhood, I wasn't received kindly.
No way.
Well, at first people would tease me all the time and say, you sound white. You sound so white. Can we come to your house for crumpets and tea? And that used to hurt my feelings. I used to feel rejected amongst, the community. And at that point, I think at a certain point, I was a teenager, so I tried to blend in, so I adapted more of the neighborhood accent, I think, at the time. But that happens to me when I go to New York. So I started to not feel ashamed of speaking properly because it wasn't accepted by my peers in the community. So my mother says to me one day, "You don't sound white, you sound right." And I thought it was just an interesting thing. So when I told that story at the audition, they started laughing, and I think it was one other thing that I did in the audition, and they called me the very next day. I was praying all day at work. I said, "Lord, if it's in your will, I really, really want to play Tata. I know I auditioned for both roles, but I really, really want to play Tata. So if it's in your will, Lord, please, I understand. If it's not." And about a half an hour after I stopped praying, the phone rang. And it was that they wanted to offer me the role of Tata. So I love telling that story because it's like the power of prayer. It's my personal struggle, and I related to the role. And, my first lead role in a feature that I ended up on the cover of was in the neighborhood where I grew up. Right around the corner was Tata's apartment from the place that I grew up.
That's an interesting story because I myself was born Javier, and I became Harv when I went to broadcasting school, and the teachers didn't know what to do with my name because it's a J, but it don't look like a J and it doesn't sound like a J, and so it becomes Harv. And I too at times have been told that I don't have the accent, that I'm not Puerto Rican, that I'm Puerto Rican, or I'm one of the new yuppies, and I've been here longer than them. It's insane for people to think because you can be articulate that you must not be who you really are.
Quiero yo tanto, por siempre la llamaré preciosa. Yo sé de sus hembras trigueñas, sé del olor de sus rosas, por eso a mi tierra riqueña, por siempre la llamaré preciosa. Isla del Caribe, isla del Caribe, Borinquen, preciosa te llaman las olas del mar que te baña. Preciosa por ser un encanto, por ser un Edén. Y tienes la noble hidalguía de la Madre España y el fiero cantío del indio bravío lo tienes también. Preciosa te llaman los bardos que cantan tu historia. No importa el tirano te trate con negra maldad. los hijos de la libertad.
That's right. And I think that it's important for us to let the newer generations know that it doesn't have to be about segregating yourself about the way you speak or the way you dress or what kind of gym shoes you're wearing or, you know, just all of that doesn't matter. The color of our skin doesn't matter.
But the shame of it is, growing up, it kind of was like that, wasn't it? Maybe
It was.
Because there's well, Humboldt Park is a little different. It's not a class system. It's a neighborhood system. It's a street corner system, and every corner stands for something. Every color stands for something. And then when you do get to high school, depending on where you go, because if you said you went to a private school, so let's say you went to Josephinum.
Well, for high school, I jumped around. In grammar school, I went to a private grammar school. And that was when I got, picked on in the neighborhood. By high school, I was becoming a little bit more diverse, and I ended up at Von Steuben, St. Greg's, and I graduated from Mosquito.
Ah, you were a Panther.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is that? The movie Chicago Boricua, then that was your first?
That was my first lead role in an independent film. I had done other shorter independent films where I had played cameos. My first break in the industry was in 1997. I was the co-host of Stepping on Club 7 with Herb Kent.
Herb Kent, the cool gent.
Yes, I was his Latina co-host, and I used to host the Salsa Merengue segment.
I didn't know that. I wish I could find that, because I listened to Herb Kent when he was on WXFM, and you're a little bit younger than I am, so you may not remember, but back in the early 80s, he was on WXFM, and he used to do a punk out show. And he would play Devo and the B-52s and Kraftwerk, and then he would introduce the songs. And this is the same cool gent that had a Dusty show at another time during the week. With radio, he's the man.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I was working at the Village Cafe. Do you remember the Village Cafe that used to be on Grand and Western?
Wow, you are so close to me. You are so close. I'm on Grand and Damon as we speak.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was 21 years old, and I had just had my son, and I was pretty stubborn at the time, and I thought I was going to do this on my own. I was not going to need the help that other people needed because I was capable and I could do it, and, I was just trying to be a very strong woman at the time, so I got a couple jobs. I was working, one job was a security dispatcher. It was like somebody's alarm went off. I would be the one to call the police and entering all these codes on the computer. And then my night job, I was bartending at the Village Cafe.
Wow.
And I didn't ever bartend before. I was 21 years old, so I just barely started drinking myself. And I walked in one day and I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. And they said, well, we're willing to train you as a bartender. I said, okay, great. So I started training as a bartender, and while I was bartending at the Village Cafe, I guess one of the VJs or DJs that was mixing at the nightclub kind of observed me bartending, and I'm not sure because I really didn't know him at the time, like what possessed him to do this, but at the time he was the DJ on the dance show with Herb Kent, and he knew the producer, and the producer had mentioned to him that they were looking for a Latina to come on and host the Salsa Merengue segment. So I guess this DJ tells the producer, well, there's this girl at the bar that I work at. She's really funny, and she makes a lot of customers want to come around her, and she's one of a kind. You have to come check her out. And so I guess the producer had come to the bar one night and kind of sat around, and at the end of the night said, hey, I don't want to sound like a creep or anything, but I've been observing you, and you're something else, and I wanted to know if you would be interested in auditioning for my television dance show as a host. And I said, sure, why not? And he said, well, how do you read? I said, well, I speed read for accuracy. I'm very good at reading. And he said, really? Because we work with a teleprompter. So as long as you can work with a teleprompter, you're good. And I'm like, okay. So I auditioned, probably around maybe 10 or 15 other people auditioned too, including some local radio VJs like Irene Mojica. And they offered me the spot. And that was when I first kind of broke out into the scene. It was one of the first years that R. Kelly was like doing the music, WGCI Music Festival. He was a keynote speaker. I interviewed him. We became friends. And then the rest was history. I started kind of hanging around with him and being at parties with Crucial Conflicts and Sparkle and all of those people. And I was kind of like the Puerto Rican, Barbie doll that was there, kind of like making everyone laugh and interviewing people. And they started putting me in independent films playing myself. So there's like a couple little independent films out there where I'm playing Christina De Leon in the movie. So that was kind of cool. And those are my first breaks. Then I started doing theater. Then I did Chicago Boricua. Then after that, that went to all the films. It went to Tribeca. It went to Urban World Film Festival, Chicago International Film Festival, Toronto International Film Festival. And most of all the screenings for Chicago Boricua, no matter where they were all sold out. So that was quite an amazing ride. And I had met a director during the film festivals, and he then cast me as the lead to his The Day of the Dead. It's called El Día de los Muertos, where I play a detective investigating a series of grotesque murders happening to homeless women and Mexican immigrants in Chicago. And I guess I'm a detective. I'm supposed to be like a narc detective, investigating drugs and stuff, but I take it on my own to investigate these murders because one of the victims was one of my students in a self-defense class. So I did that. That's on indiefilms.com. That was directed by Ricardo Islas. And then I met some crew from Barbershop when they were filming Barbershop in Chicago. And I became friends with my now fiancé, Ram Mohammed, and Ice Cube. And they kind of just followed my career for a little while, and then I ended up on R. Kelly's Chocolate Factory album, where I did a song with him and Fat Joe. I'm doing like some sexy Spanish, lyrics. And I kind of was just doing my thing. I always kind of just got in where I fit in, and with the grace of God, I was meeting people, and I was making impressions.
The world is all mine. Check the MySpace profile. Voice of the people, so real like a Glock. The new hustler on the block. Somebody better call the cops. I'm lights out. Pull the plug. You should feel me like a thug. The hottest thing in the club. Ain't no falling in love. Then the walls came crashing when the truth came out. I'm a rapper, not a poet, aka the people's mouth. Activist, I'm a fighter. I'm a writer. Words of wisdom. I'm not a thief in the night of a vision from prison. I'm one of you. I'm all of you. I made mistakes with a plan. I fell down for $2,000. Help me up if you can. I'm here to stay if you let me. Never make that mistake. My hoe is the name. Philly Brown is the game.
You liar, you hateful, you a cheat, you a snake on the streets who move with no feet. You freak, you dirty hoe, how you hurt. The ones that had your back, how you do 'em like that? Your reflection in the mirror, how sad. Played by your mother, guilty loved by your dad. You rap, you talk, you speak, but you ain't say it. That's why at night you can't sleep. Who's the soul with no name? Who's to blame? No fortune, no fame. Sacrifice of the game. Walk away with your pride. Keep your head way up high. Way high to the sky. True beliefs till you die. Why ask why? Dead souls don't cry. Rap fools tell lies. Broken dreams, suicide. Smile now, cry later. Philly Brown, your life's greater than a fake record deal and a new navigator. Speak from your heart, from the end to the start. The record charts, baby, be a real star. Stand up for your people. Speak the truth, pave the way for the youth. Mama, do what you do. You liar, you hateful, you a cheat, you a snake.
Another Chicago-born actress, another fierce Latina, Gina Rodriguez as Philly Brown, along with Slow Pain with Reflections, that is off the movie Philly Brown. We also heard music from Mark Anthony, Preciosa. We heard George Lamont with Mi Patria. At the top of the hour, the Stand Up the Cancer song featuring a variety of artists who banded together to at least create an awareness and try to raise money for cancer research. And we were doing kind of sort of the same thing for Betsy Fonseca and everyone else during this month of March, as we are trying to make people aware and educated when it comes to multiple sclerosis. My name is Harv Roman. Another exciting edition of Celebrity Conversations. Our guest this Saturday morning happens to be Christina De Leon, Chicago Boricua, and also Moms, the very cool comedy series that's online. We'll talk about that in a smidge because it's online now, but it could be coming soon to a TV near you. When we return, more Celebrity Conversation.
Denzel Washington for the Boys and Girls Clubs.
In my hand, I'm holding a 2-inch by 3-inch piece of paper that has changed the lives of millions of young people. that's kept them off drugs, out of gangs, and in school. Now, what could be that powerful and still fit in the palm of my hand? A membership card from the Boys and Girls Clubs. Every day, another 300 kids will join clubs all across the country. That's 300 kids who will be picking up a membership card instead of a gun or a needle or a knife. You know, too many people feel like they can't make a difference, but I'm telling you this. Put this card in the hands of a child and you will change that child's life. Do that and you can change the world. It's up to all of us. Support a program that works. The Boys and Girls Clubs, the positive place for kids.
For more information, Denzel Washington for the Boys and Girls Clubs.
In my hand, I'm holding a 2-inch by 3-inch piece of paper that has changed the lives of millions of young people. It's kept them off drugs, out of gangs, and in school. Now, what could be that powerful and still fit in the palm of my hand? A membership card from the Boys and Girls Clubs. Every day, another 300 kids will join clubs all across the country. That's 300 kids who will be picking up a membership card instead of a gun or a needle or a knife. You know, too many people feel like they can't make a difference, but I'm telling you this. Put this card in the hands of a child and you will change that child's life. Do that and you can change the world. It's up to all of us. Support a program that works. The Boys and Girls Clubs, the positive place for kids.
For more information and to find out how you can support the Boys and Girls Clubs, call 1-800-854-CLUB. That's 1-800-854-CLUB.
Wake up, wake up dancing, wake up dancing, wake up dancing. Harv Roman's gonna make you dance. Wake up dancing, wake up dancing, wake up dancing. Wake up, Harv Roman's gonna make you dance.
It's me right here, 1590 AM WCGO Radio in Chicago, where Chicago goes for Celebrity Conversations early on a Saturday morning. And if you happen to miss the radio broadcast, the podcast premiere can be found on Mixcloud, and I am releasing segment by segment onto my YouTube channel. So you can look for Harv Roman on Mixcloud, you can look for Harv Roman on YouTube, you can look for WCGO on your radio, and you will find me, Christina De Leon, and a bunch of you who are waving and saying hello. So we'll say hello back to Yvette and Rolando and Candy and Zez, Darrow, Angelique, Mark, Ruby, Tony, Latasha, Annette, Nelly, Yolanda, Lewis, and Angelica, all part of our scroll call for this Celebrity Conversation, which takes place in March, the month of MS Awareness, along with awareness of Christina De Leon, who's given us a whole lot of tidbits that I had never thought of before. I didn't know she was at the Village Cafe, for instance. Did you know that? I didn't know that. So let's do some musical stopping stuff, and then we'll go back to some more with the Christina De Leon Celebrity Conversation. This is from Pinky Ring, another Chicago story. This is from Her Story, The Lost Chapters, and it features the HHW School for the Performing Arts Choir.
Where do we go from here? We can't keep living in fear. Put down the guns, rise up as one, so we can dry our tears.
Chicago, Windy City, Chi-Town, they're all my home. Then I think, what a pity, Chirac is how you know. These streets are battlegrounds, marked for death, war zones, holiday massacres like in the days of Capone. Like Six and Stones, Game of Thrones. This isn't child's play, this isn't a TV show. This is real, shoot to kill with barrels made of chrome. Let caps get peeled from the steel to the dome. The young die restless, no chance of being grown. From the cradle to the grave, to their names on a stone. Lives cut short, many dreams never shown. Like birds without wings from a flock that's never flown. Some become numb, like a shot of methadone. Cause the pain isn't felt till it's dealt to their flesh and bone. Those left behind ask why we're broken homes. What do we do? Where do we go? Does anybody know?
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? We can't keep living in fear. We can't live in fear. Put down the guns,
some of the tallest skyscrapers the world has ever seen. One of a kind skyline, topping tourist magazines. But like Biggie once said, things ain't always what they seem like. Scattered glass and shattered dreams, hood parks after dark and playgrounds with empty swings. Sound of happy children is replaced with peaceful screams. Gunshots through busy blocks, just some other murder teens. No shock at 10 o'clock, the local news live at the scene. Guns cocked, crooked cops, hands up, no one's free. Teardrops, flooding blocks, yellow tape stuff the streets. White and blue, red stars, squad cars, CPD. Questions asked, no one sees, no one hears, no one speaks. Why can't we see a lot more of the best that we can be? Like Jackie Robinson West, Little League team. What do we do? Where do we go? Can anybody see? Where do we go?
For some reason, the people that I met along the way really wanted to just pull me up and say, hey, you know what? For instance, with Ice Cube in 2007, after being friends with them for maybe 3 or 4 years, and them saying like, hey, what's up with you? Oh, I just did Chicago Boricua. Oh, I just did this. Oh, I just did an ad for Glamour and Espanol for Thermosilk. Oh, I just won International Model of the Year Petite for the Chicago Fashion and Beauty Awards. Like, wow, you do a lot of stuff. Well, they offered me a chance to work production on Ice Cube's films in 2007. So in 2007, I left Chicago, and I came out here to Los Angeles as a production assistant on First Sunday.
That's an interesting story, because most of the people that are leaving town now are leaving town, to make more of a name for themselves. They're successful here on stage, and, either with the stand-up or with the one-man shows or acting pieces here and there.
And I knew that I was making a sacrifice. Some people would consider it a step backwards, but I always had my plan in mind. I knew that I wanted to be more than just an actress. I knew that I didn't want to leave my career in the hands of others. I wanted to be a shot caller. I wanted to be a producer. I wanted to be an actress. Of course, that's my first passion, and I love being in front of the camera, but I felt like I could make other people famous. I couldn't show everybody else's talents. I've never been one to just only think about myself. It's like, if I can make you famous, or even not famous, just if I could show your work, show what your talent is, give you an opportunity the way that people gave me an opportunity, I'm happy. So I knew that I wanted to come out here and really, really make a name for myself and get into production, because as a producer, I'm not waiting for somebody to hire me. I'm hiring.
It's interesting that you say that, because, you've become friends with Ice Cube. The rise of the both of you is very, very similar, where you both came from situations where people wouldn't have expected you to succeed how you have been. But the reason that the two of you have become successful is because you put yourself in positions to be decision makers. You look at everything that he's done. He was producing his own stuff early on.
Right. And when you see the movie Straight Outta Compton, you see the tough choices that he had to make, even going against the grain at times. When everyone said, don't do that or don't do this, he just kind of said, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm doing it. And when he did it, it was like, oh, he did it. And it really put his stamp on, because of songs like, and I'm a little torn with this, because both of my parents are retired CPD. But with the song Fuck the Police, I understand, what is happening with.
Well, his generation, early 90s, right. You're dealing with Rodney King's situation, so.
Harv, to tell you the truth, it's not just his generation. I have my son, my beautiful son, Nico. Everybody knows him. I made him Facebook famous.
He's the baller.
He's the baller. The shot caller out here. He, it's sad, Harv, because you think that we get to a place in society where it doesn't matter anymore. But my son, he's a dark-skinned Puerto Rican, and we come out here, and everybody's like, they don't even know what a Puerto Rican is. So it's like, what are you? Are you mixed? Are you black? And that's great. It doesn't matter. We'll be anything. But the point is like people automatically want to qualify you into something. They have to try to, once they see you, they want to put you in a certain category or a bubble, or, what does it matter? But, he's like, oh, I'm Puerto Rican. So I'm like, what's Puerto Rican?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it's in the Caribbean. It's either you're Mexican or you're black out here.
How odd is it that you go from a city and an area where the flag is in every window, and you go somewhere where they don't know what that flag is.
So I make my own sofrito now. Yeah, it's horrible. It's like a culture shock. If I didn't love sunshine and mountains and palm trees so much, I'd be so back for jibaritos.
Well, let me ask you this. How much backlash did you get when you decided to get up and go? Because I'm sure, you're friends with people like Marilyn Camacho who have gone on, and Melissa Dupre is just relocated to go to New York. And a lot of times when the Chicago talent decides they need to go somewhere else, there is backlash. It's almost as if they're saying, man, you ain't one of us anymore. But you kind of have to, because Chicago's not, it's a nice theater hub, but it's not a Hollywood hub.
I love all my fellow, my Chicago talent. Fernando Disco Rodriguez is a really good personal friend of mine. We produce things together. A show out here at Cable Access called Black TV. Shay Madi, she's a singer out here. She's trying to be a pop star. Shay Madi Music, she's on Facebook. Lyric Cruz, we grew up together, and his cousin is one of my sister's best friends. And he's out here as a master choreographer working at Debbie Allen's Dance Academy. Gina Rodriguez, we have mutual friends, and she's also from there. I just, I feel like, I don't feel like I got backlash. I've never been one to care what other people think. I always just made my moves, and then I would hear about stuff after the fact. But because my moves mattered, it never mattered what anybody was saying, because nobody made the moves that I made. Not like that.
Well, that's refreshing to know, because throughout some of the people that I've known that have gotten up and moved, there has been the occasional, well, now you're too good for us, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, they always come back, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I love Chicago, and there's a lot of work there now too. So I encourage, across the board, if you're from Chicago, there's work in Chicago. If you're from Atlanta, there's work in Atlanta. So it's kind of, you have to get in where you fit in, make it work for you. Start off, if you're in Chicago and you want to get into acting, start off in Chicago. There's so much to do there now with Empire and Chicago PD, and a couple different shows that are being produced in Chicago. If we had better tax credits there, more shows would be produced in Chicago, but unfortunately.
It's interesting, because that became a political hot point not that long ago, because there were so many shows filming, and then you wind up with a new governor, and they kind of wanted to remix the system, and then here in the city is like, well, I guess they're not going to film here anymore. I mean, they're still doing some filming.
It's horrible. It's but Barbershop 3 didn't film in Chicago. It filmed in Atlanta.
Quiero proponer un trato a los salseros del mundo, que defendamos la salsa y lo hagamos con orgullo. La salsa que defendió Héctor Lavoe con su canto, la que Celia Cruz nos cantó, esa que te gusta tanto. Me gusta la rumba, el cha-cha-cha y el danzón, pero cuando dicen salsa, ahí estoy yo. La salsa nos pide a grito que nos unamos salseros, porque hay que representarla por el mundo entero. Cano Estremera de Alberto Santiago, Andy Montañez, Perdona Soe, Tito Rojas. Para mi gente de Chicago y Nueva York. Quiero proponer un trato a los salseros del mundo, que unamos todas las voces, que seamos uno, si todos están de acuerdo y de una forma elegante, votemos por nuestra salsa, haciendo la clave, votemos por nuestra salsa.
And it was because of tax, the tax. They saved a lot of money. In Atlanta.
This is why you can see a movie.
In Atlanta.
It's supposed to be 26th Street or Division Street, and it's actually Toronto somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly quite sure on the numbers, so don't quote me, but it was like saving over $3 million, I'm pretty sure. So, it's like they've got to do better with their tax breaks. But I think that it's important for you to follow your heart and follow your passion. If you think that you're going to do better in LA, come to LA. If you think, you have to go with what your heart is telling you to do. My heart, since I was a little girl, already knew. It was my goal. I want to go to LA. I want to go to LA. People got so sick of hearing me say, I want to go to LA. Some of my not friends, the people that are around you that say they're your friends, but they're not your friends.
Right.
So snuggy with you all the time. They would say, oh, why don't you just go to LA already? If they had to hear me say it.
It's kind of interesting that you say all this because people will look at your name and then they'll see you, your Facebook or your Twitter, and you're hanging around with Ice Cube, and you're on projects with them, and they're thinking that you are this overnight sensation, and the overnight sensation has taken almost 20 years.
Right. It's been really interesting. I started off, like I said, working with Herb Kent, who's a legend in his own right, a radio legend. And after I worked on that show, I came out here to LA for a little while. I had some girlfriends living in Orange County, and I wanted to give it a whirl in 1999, maybe the year 2000. It was right when J-Lo was starting to hit, and I came out here to Los Angeles, and I was like, I want to now try to catapult from the Herb Kent Stepping on Club 7 show and try to see what I can do with my career in Los Angeles. Well, unfortunately, I didn't come out here with much cash. So I didn't realize that in order to do anything out here, you definitely need to have a car because everything is so spread out and their public transportation system is just not the same as our public transportation system in Chicago. Especially, I was even living in another county. I was in Orange County. So I was kind of at this point where I was getting low on funds and I kind of didn't know what was going to happen next. And my girlfriend said, hey, we're going to go to the West Covina Mall. Would you like to come? And I'm like, well, I can't buy anything, but I'll go with you guys because I can't spend any more money. So we go to the West Covina Mall, and I'm in the West Covina Mall just kind of sitting outside one of the stores waiting for my girlfriend to come out. And some guy from a lotion kiosk comes up to me and says, hey, would you like to try some lotion? And I'm like, no, thank you. And he goes, well, you get a free hand massage. I'm like, okay.
That's a line, Christina.
Yeah. So he starts rubbing my hand, right? Squeezes some lotion, starts rubbing my hand. It sounds so gross, but it was actually nice. And he tells me, I can tell that you're not from California because you have an accent. Where are you from? I said, I'm from Chicago. He said, really? What brings you out to LA? I said, well, I'm trying to pursue a career in acting. He said, do you dance? I said, oh, why do you ask? He said, well, this is just my side gig. I own this lotion kiosk. These are all my own lotions. But during the week, I'm the creative consultant for a magazine called Salsa Sabor. And we want to do a Spanish Soul Train.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, what a coincidence. Because in Chicago, I hosted a television dance show with Herb Kent, and I was the host of the Salsa Merengue segment. He said, really? Well, here's my card. Do you have tape? I said, yes, I do. He said, okay, call me on Monday, and I would love for you to come to our office so you could meet the rest of my business partners. Maybe you can be the host of our Spanish Soul Train. I'm like, okay. So I told my roommate about it, and she goes, well, I'm going to have to go with you because there's so many freaks and crazy people in L.A., you don't even know where this guy's telling you to go or who he is. I said, that's true. So she came with me. It ended up being, we went to a doctor's office in a downtown L.A. skyscraper. It was a group of Cuban doctors who had decided to start a production company called Picasso Productions. And I happened to meet their creative consultant that day at the West Covina Mall. So I had a meeting with them, and I showed them my tape, and they're like, okay, we see your potential. Your show's all right, but we see your potential. We're going to offer you a public relations position. We want you to go around to clubs in Los Angeles and host salsa nights to look for dancers for our Spanish Soul Train. I'm like, okay, I'm there. So they offered me that job. They threw me like a birthday party within the first week of meeting them. I was having this huge 22, 25-person birthday party with a bunch of people I didn't even know at La Floridita over here. And they were just so welcoming to me, like right away, just right off the bat, off that meeting. So about 2 weeks into us planning the production and going to do the Spanish Soul Train, the real Soul Train calls. Now, mind you, this is in 2000, and I got a lot of flack. You were talking about what people were saying and how people acted when I first left Chicago for LA. And this is before I met Ice Cube. This is just me off the Herb Tent show and saying I want to try to give it a whirl in LA. So the kind of things I was hearing was, oh, yeah, right, like she's really going to do something. Oh, probably porn. We'll see her soon. You know, stuff like that. Like, a lot of people were being so disrespectful. Anytime I got roles or anything, people associated it with, like, wonder what she did for that. And that's so degrading to me as a woman. You know, so I'm very much against misogyny and all of that, too. So it was hard. It was a hard time. I know that people doubted everything I did at that time. You know, I would say, I'm going to go I was working with Michelle Gomez. I don't know if you know her, over there at Dynamic Studio.
Yeah.
Have a little magazine at the time, and she gave me my start in modeling. When everybody said I couldn't be a model because I was too short, I did so much work with Michelle that I ended up being nominated and won International Model of the Year Petite at the Chicago Fashion Beauty Awards at the DuSable Museum. But I say that to say, every time somebody tells you that you can't do something, if you believe in your heart that you can, you don't take anybody else's word for it.
Tu salud ha cambiado de día y ahora la noche es tu vida. Los amigos a dónde se fueron, nada más se acerca cuando tiras dinero. Y ya ha volado por todo el mundo, el amor de millones es tan profundo, pero en tan poquito de tiempo ya te caíste si tienes miedo. Entonces te encontraste entre dos cines, uno volando y el otro pensando a dónde estoy. Yo soy una estrella caída, se me fue mi fuego. Serás una estrella caída, se te fue tu fuego, pobre estrella caída. Ya se fue tu fuego. Mírate ahora tan famosa, estás viviendo la vida loca. Cosas material, a ti te importa, tu gran amor eran las drogas. Entonces te encontraste entre dos cines, uno volando y el otro pensando a dónde estoy. Yo soy una estrella caída, se me fue mi fuego. Serás una estrella caída, se te fue tu fuego, pobre estrella caída. Ya se fue su fuego. Aprende la vela, oh. Apaga la vela, no. Entonces te encontraste entre dos cines, uno volando y el otro pensando a dónde estoy. Yo soy, ya vino tu momento.
Do what you need to do and figure it out for yourself and see if it can happen. Because when the Real Soul Train called the Picasso Productions office, I said, me, I'll go to the Real Soul Train, because I felt it was an opportunity to get myself, even for a moment, on TV, so that everybody in Chicago who was saying all those horrible things could say, oh, there she is on Soul Train. You know, it was a chance for people to be able to see me on television not long after I had gotten out here. So I ended up on the set of the Real Soul Train, and I see Don Cornelius, who was in his executive producer mode.
Another Chicago guy.
Another Chicago guy, and you're going to love this. So I see him, and I say, wow, I really need to meet him. I want to meet him, and I need to meet him. And the guys, the producers that I was with were like, no, don't talk to him. Don't go up to him. He doesn't like to be bothered while he's working. Like, just leave him alone. Well, if anybody knows me, and a lot of people do, they know that Christina De Leon rarely takes no for an answer. And when I hear the word no, it's almost like you're challenging me. So I decided that I was not going to just take heed of what I had been told, and I just marched right up to Don Cornelius. And I said, "Hi, Mr. Cornelius. I'm Christina De Leon. I don't know if you're familiar with me, but I hosted a show in Chicago with a man named Harv Roman. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I am a huge fan of your work, and watching you work right now is amazing." And he looked at me because I was talking like I just did right now, like a million miles a minute. He goes, "Well, little lady, what a coincidence. Herb can't put me in the business."
Wow.
He goes, "You're all right with me." And he put his arm around me. He goes, "But you might be a little too young, though." And he goes, "I'm going to introduce you to somebody." And he introduced me to his then host, which was Maestro Clark. And then me and Maestro became friends, and we ended up in Miami together doing a positive message rap CD, encouraging kids to stay in school and not do drugs. And I did a photo shoot and did all these other things. And at that time, you know, my son was about 2 and 3 years old, and he had stayed in Chicago because I was trying to establish myself, and I was going to send for him. But as a mother, that everyone knows that I am now, and you see how much I love my children, it was breaking my heart every day to be away from him. I had one of those big giant buttons with his face on it, and I had it pinned to my pillow. And so every night I would fall asleep with him, but I would cry. I cry talking about it now. And because I would cry so much, my tears would hit right at the top of my cheek, on my left cheek. And my tears burned like a pimple.
Oh.
It wouldn't go away. And it was so funny. And I missed him so much. So after I was in Miami, I said, you know what? I don't have to go home with my tail between my legs. I did something. You know, even if it just seems so small to everybody else, to me, I could come back home. I had a photo shoot. I had a record deal with the company that we worked with in Miami. They signed me to a 3-year deal. It didn't end up working out, and you know the rest of my story. I mean, my story is a long one, but.
Well, we can dive into that. Let me get a chance to take a quick break, and we'll return more with Christina De Leon.
Wow, and this quick break is going to take a while because it is the end of the hour already. An hour celebrity hotline conversation with Chicago's very own Christina De Leon. You may remember from Chicago Boricua, the movie, or as a producer on quite a few things, including on Barbershop Movies and Moms, the internet series, which hopefully will become a TV series as well. We heard music in the last half hour. Marilyn Camacho Rubio with Estrella Caída. Lefty Perez, also from Chicago, with Salceros Unidos. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Puerto Rican. A pinky ring right after the PSA and the scroll call with Where Do We Go From Here, with a choir from a bunch of kids here in Chicago as well. So cool to have that conversation with Christina De Leon, and the hour has kind of gone fairly quickly. Thanks for tuning in to 1590 AM or my Mixcloud podcast premiere or my YouTube segments. And we've got a couple of more very, very cool interview tidbits or segments with Christina De Leon, and I won't play that for you now since we're running out of time, but I will play that for you very, very soon. Keep your eyes and ears open to my Facebook, my YouTube, and my Mixcloud, and also 1590 AM. In the meanwhile, my thanks to Christina De Leon for this celebrity conversation, and my thanks to all of you for clickety-clicking all over our Facebooks and Twitters and stuff like that. In the meanwhile, it's Fast Forward with Baby Don't Go, even though we have to. Till soon.
No puedes separar dos vidas que ya están juntas. No sabes que mi amor por ti es para siempre. Baby, no te vayas. Baby, no te vayas. No puedes separar dos vidas que ya están juntas. No sabes que mi amor por ti es para siempre. Baby, no te vayas. No puedes separar dos vidas que ya están juntas.
girl, Christina De Leon, Chicago Boricua, and you're listening to Harv Roman. Doing big things on the Harv Roman Show.